Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. Hey, fans, we have a lot to get to. The Freeway Series began last night. Max Muncy, Chris Taylor, they went back-to-back. Clayton Kershaw, he looked really good, pitched really well, and went deep into last night's game. And then Kyle Nevin, very cool moment. He got to play first as his dad was managing for the Angels, so there's a lot to get to. In last night's game, we have a couple of games to cover on today's Dodgers Daily, so settle in and join along because we have a great show for you today. But before we get into all that, hey, just a reminder, if you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily, become a subscriber. After you subscribe, go ahead and turn on those notifications. Click that notification bell. That way, every time Dodgers Daily releases a new video, you will be notified. You won't miss a thing. Dodgers Daily can keep growing, and we can keep providing you content like this in the future. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it. Let's talk the Freeway Series, and let's talk Dodgers baseball. You were looking at Dustin May, who just the other day, Saturday, he actually got the start, and he did get touched a little bit. He gave up 3 earned runs, but in my opinion, the takeaway, I've talked about this a couple of times. Actually, I've talked about it several different times, that guys that have had Tommy John, that are coming back from Tommy John, it's all about getting the feel back. You can see that pitch right there. He pulled that slider. That happens sometimes with guys coming off of Tommy John, pulled it again, pulled the fastball that time. And really the only way to get that feel back is just to continue to pitch. So although Dustin May did get touched up a little bit, gave up 3 earned runs, the takeaway is he went 5.2 innings. And the more innings that Dustin May throws, the more innings that Caleb Ferguson throws, the more innings that Noah Syndergaard throws, all these guys coming off of Tommy John, the more they get the feel back and the better the command becomes. So I'm not worried about, boy, that's a nasty pitch right there, that slider. I'm not worried about the 3 runs he gave up. I am excited about the fact that he went, look at that pitch. Wow, that pitch just fell off the table. I'm excited about the fact that he was able to go 5 2/3 innings and stretch that thing out and just continue to get pitch after pitch, on that Tommy John arm to get the feel back. So, like I said, the more innings he gets, the better his feel will get for his stuff, which means, the better the feel he gets, the better the command will become. And, he's been good in spring training, 2.95 ERA. The whip has been 1.15. He's had 20 strikeouts and 18.1 innings. His command has been, it's come and gone a little bit in spring training like that right there. But like I said, that's because, getting the feels back. There's going to be times where it feels better than others. And the more that he throws and gets away from that Tommy John, the better it will feel. And like I said, the better the command will be. So all in all, successful spring training for Dustin May. We will see how it goes as the season starts. But I've said it a couple of times. From a raw stuff perspective, he has the nastiest stuff of anybody in the system, in my opinion. And whenever he is commanding the strike zone, he is just absolutely dominant. So excited to see what Dustin May will bring to the table this year. Michael Busch had a home run and a double in Saturday's game, and I have said it over and over and over. Of course, you got to see just about everything that Michael Busch has to offer on Saturday. He had a home run and a double. Now he's 7 for his last 14 with 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored, and 15 total bases. I'm going to say that again. In his last 4 games, he has 15 total bases, which is, he's just a stat stuffer. I mean, he's always on base. He's always, when he gets hits, it's not like he's dinking the ball into left field either. It's not like he's this punching Judy type guy. He does that. He hits home runs. He hits doubles. He does damage. So while he's still going 7 for 14, which is 500 over, an extended period of games, he's not just dinking the ball into left field. He's doing damage at the same time. So you kind of got to see everything that Michael Busch has to offer, especially at the end of spring training. He got really hot. He was 7 for his last 14. I've said it a couple times. If you gave him 300 Major League at-bats, he would prove to be one of the best hitters in the organization, just like he did in spring training. His batting average ended up, I don't know exactly what it is at this exact moment. It changes every day as they get at bats, but it's somewhere around 300. He finished hot, and then you got to see him make an error on kind of a routine play. That's just kind of the enigma of what Michael Busch is. It's, hey, what do you do with him defensively? I'm of the opinion if you put him at second base, I saw him all last year. I saw him at Tulsa in 2021. I had talked to Tom Holliday, who was actually the coach that moved him to second base in the Cape Cod League. If you put him at second base, he's going to make the routine plays. Now, I know he made an error in Saturday's game, and it didn't look pretty. There are going to be times where defensively it doesn't look pretty for Michael Busch, but offensively, he is hot and cold. When he gets hot, boy, he gets hits in bunches, no doubt about that. And like I said earlier, not only does he get hits in bunches, he does damage with them. They're doubles and they're home runs and that kind of thing. So Michael Busch has an unbelievable hit tool. I'm going to say it again one more time at least. The Dodgers need to find a way to get him 200 to 300 major league at-bats. Boy, how about Andre Jackson? I had a chance to communicate with him. I got a quote from him the other day. He said he's just trying to get that four-seam you just saw in those last two pitches, and then, in the zone, and then play everything off of that, and then trying to throw that change-up from front to back is the way that he puts it, meaning that he's trying to get some tumble on it and get it to be in the strike zone at the front of the zone, and then get it to tumble, not necessarily out of the zone, but at least get it to tumble, downward in the zone to the back of the zone. So that's what he likes to call from front to back with his changeup, and he pairs that with that really good tight slider, type cutterish more looking pitch. It looks more cutterish to me this year, so he can get it in the strike zone. There's that good four-seam to the fourth slot, the Dodgers like to call it. I know there was a base hit on that pitch. That cutter back there backed up on him just a touch. But, hey, Andre, look at that four-seam up in the zone. That's a big difference for him. And just there's that front-to-back changeup. You saw at the front of the zone, it was a strike. At the back of the zone, it wasn't, and it got swing and miss. That's what he means. Boy, there's another good four-seam. And, again, his velo's up a little bit into 2021 when I had a chance to talk to him at the Bricktown Ballpark. He was 91, 92. I have not seen his velo. I haven't looked at it, but I think that pitch right there, just based on how the hitter reacted to it, is a little hotter. There's that cutter right there. That's not quite as big as the slider he's thrown in the past, and that's going to help him stay in the strike zone. And he doesn't need a big sweeping slider type pitch because he already has that front to back changeup that is really, really, really good. And it looks to me kind of like Ryan Pepio. He's removed a little bit of fade to that changeup. There's that cutter-looking pitch. Just trying to get weak contact off of it, not necessarily a swing and miss. And for Andre Jackson, weak contact is fantastic. And then you hit that four slot with it. So you hit that four slot with that fastball right there. Then you tunnel that little cutter off of it. And, it's maybe 3 to 4 to 5 miles an hour off the fastball. Then you get the weak contact that you saw on the cutter he threw just a second ago. Then you put hitters away with that four-seam up in the zone, and then that you tunnel that front-to-back changeup off of it. It's a great combination. It's been good for Andre Jackson because he's thrown it in the strike zone, and he has posted a 1.80 ERA, a whip of just 1.10, an average against of 237, and he has 12 strikeouts and just 2 walks. And Andre Jackson going to make the opening day roster and has put himself in a position, I should go back and say I believe, but Andre Jackson, no doubt about it, he has put himself in a position to be a major factor this year, and I am super pumped about it. I love this young man out of Utah. A lot of people don't realize he didn't pitch a whole lot at Utah. He, in college, he was an outfielder, and then he had the Tommy John surgery like so many of these. There's that little cutter again that's tunneled off that four-slot fastball, and you saw the weak contact. So Andre Jackson pitching very well, in position to be a major factor this year for the Dodgers. Steven Duggar had 2 singles on Saturday, and they were both off of right-handed curveballs. His average doesn't look great in spring training. He's had a good look, though. He's played in 19 games. He's had 36 at-bats, but, that's off of Zach Greinke, the former Dodger. We remember him, obviously. But look at this, right-handed curveball, and the thing about that is, with all of these guys that hit home runs for the Dodgers, there's that second kind of cutterish-looking breaking ball that Steven Duggar got a hit off of. So 2 hits on Saturday. Hey, if you're a guy that can hit right-handed breaking balls especially, and you got a right-handed breaking ball pitcher for the other team, Gary Ward used to tell his players, and he's told me before, the former Oklahoma State baseball coach who led Oklahoma State to, I believe it was 7 or 8 College World Series in a row, and 3 or 4 actual national championship games. Never could break through and quite win one. But he would say, hey, if you can do just one thing on your team better than everybody else, I can find a role for you. Doesn't matter if it's running bases. Doesn't matter if it's bunting. It doesn't matter if it's defense. Whatever that role may be, whatever that one thing may be, if you can just do one thing better than everybody else in the team, I can find a role for you. So if Steven Duggar can be a guy that, hey, say you have a right-handed curveball pitching guy, and he does that better than everybody else on the Dodgers team, there's a chance that the Dodgers might see that as a niche that they could use and put him in and match him up against right-handed curveballs in a situation to where they, maybe it's a moment to where they've had some injuries and he's up on the 26-man roster and he's actually on, the big club at that moment. That's a role, if he can prove he's better than everybody else on the team to do that. And he, like I said, got 2 hits on Saturday. Maybe that's a niche that they carve out for him. So, just kind of wanted to bring that up. So Steven Duggar, 2 hits on Saturday. If you go to one of my social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I think even TikTok, you can see the entire bat. We may get through it for Jake Vogel from his at-bat from Saturday, and I wanted to show that because he is one of the, if not the fastest prospects in the entire Dodgers organization. You can see he's another one of those guys that has a pretty flat path with his hands, which is good for a guy that's fast because, if you hit a hard ground ball to somebody's right or left, especially the left side of the infield, when you can run like Jake Vogel can, right there, I love that swing. Look how flat his hands came through the zone. He's able to turn that barrel with the top hand to match the play of the pitch and then run like crazy because Jake Vogel is fast. Last year, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right there you see, he didn't hit, his average wasn't all that great, only 236, and he got off to a really, really slow start, but he had a good August, and then he slowed back down in September. But this is a guy that was drafted, I believe it was in the 3rd round of the 2020 draft out of Huntington Beach High School. Yeah, 3rd round 2020 draft. So the Dodgers are really high on this guy. And anytime, there's a couple of things that you can't coach. Look at that flat bat path, and look at that young man run. Jake Vogel can absolutely scoot. And you can't teach speed. I mean, you can make guys a little bit stronger or, a little bit faster. But if a guy starts out slow, you're not going to turn him into necessarily a real fast guy unless he just matures into his body, gets rid of baby fat and that kind of thing. So Jake Vogel has a tool that not everybody has that you can't always teach, and that is speed. And so anytime you can run like him and you have a flat path with your hands like he has, the Dodgers aren't going to obsess over the numbers. Again, 236 last year. They're going to look at the raw tools. Kind of like a Johnny DeLuca, who, if you would have looked at his batting average, say in June last year, it was hovering around the 200 mark. And I had a chance to talk to Dylan Nashaka right about that time when Johnny DeLuca was hitting about 200. And Dylan point blank said, hey, watch out for this guy. He's getting ready to get hot, and he did. So that's the kind of guy that the Dodgers think they have with Jake Vogel, is that, hey, we're not going to obsess about the 236. We're going to look at the speed. We're going to look at the flat hands, coming through the zone that not a lot of guys have. And we think this kid has a lot of potential, and he does. So I wanted to show you this at bat from the 3rd round 2020 draft pick, Jake Vogel, one of the fastest prospects in the organization. I've said it a couple times now, Max Muncy is healthy. He is motivated. And this young man, I've said this 3 or 4 different times now, out of Keller High School, followed him there, and then at Baylor. This guy has always hit, except for his his period with the A's when I guess he didn't hit as well. I didn't really follow him a lot at that point. But like I said, whenever we did pick him up, whatever year it was, I was super excited about it because I got to see him at Baylor quite a bit, and that was really cool. So Max Muncy has always been a good hitter since he's been a Dodger. He's been a really good offensive player. Last year was tough for him because, man, when you're dealing with the type of injury he had, it's tough to get extended on baseballs, which he likes to do, like you saw right there, and it really affected his offense. So super excited for what Max Muncy has to offer the club here in 2023. So far, he has looked absolutely fantastic. He's hitting exactly 300. This home run you're seeing right here was his 3rd home run, and so great spring training so far for Max Muncy, and he's looked good at third base, and if he can anchor down and play good defense at third base, that is a big deal because you already have Miguel Rojas. We saw him we're going to see here in just a second, his web gem and a couple of, he made the nice play on the pop-up that he went back on. Then he circled around a ball to his right that he threw over to Kyle Nevin. You're going to get the great defense from Miguel Rojas, and then you have Miguel Vargas at second base, who you figure being a rookie is going to have some lumps, and so you really need Max Muncy to be anywhere from solid to very good at third base, and he has been that so far, and he's been better than that offensively. So excited about Max Muncy and excited about the type of year he's going to have in 2023. At Virginia, Chris Taylor was actually a shortstop, and then, he actually wrestled growing up, and he was really, really good at it. I believe he won the city championship there, and I think it's Virginia Beach, Virginia. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact city he grew up in, but he was a great wrestler, so he's tough. He's a great athlete, and he was a shortstop at Virginia, and he actually had a walk-off while he was a Wahoo there, and a walk-off in the regional finals that actually sent Virginia to the College World Series. His team was actually losing by 1 run. He drove in 2 runs with 2 outs. I believe it was like the bottom of the 9th inning, something like that. Very dramatic. Then we know that they would walk off against the Cardinals in the wild card game a couple years ago, so we know he has a propensity, Chris Taylor does, for this right here, to be able to hit a home run, and especially in the clutch. And then we also know he's extremely versatile. You don't have to put a left fielder on your roster. You don't have to put a shortstop. You don't have to put specifically a third baseman on your roster, because Chris Taylor can play all those different roles. So what that does is it allows the Dodgers to, after they have their 9 everyday starters, and then you have Chris Taylor, as far as position players, then you can just literally you don't have to get specific on the position of guys you put on your 40-man. You can just literally then put the best players you have, doesn't matter what position, on the 40-man, like an Eddie's Leonard, like a Yorbit Vivas, like a Johnny DeLuca, like an Andy Paez. Even if those are guys, like DeLuca and Paez that are outfielders that are totally crowded, we have a totally crowded outfield, you can still put them on the 40-man, because you don't need a guy eminently at the major league level to fill an infield spot, because Chris Taylor can do that. Whereas if Chris Taylor was only an outfielder, then you would probably have to put another infielder on the 40-man, in case somebody went down, and a guy on the 40-man that could fill in at the major league level, like they did in Elliott Soto a couple of years ago, and guys like that. So Chris Taylor allows the Dodgers to have, a lot of roster flexibility, especially at the 40-man level, and allows them to put guys like, just their best players. They don't have to be position specific for that. And Taylor, maybe he's showing signs of coming around offensively. He is 4 for his last 16, which I think Dodgers fans, if he hit, say 20 home runs this year, and 4 for 16, that would be a 250 average. If he did that, then this one right here, we know. The thing about Chris Taylor is that when he hits the ball, his exit velocities are just massive. I remember at Oklahoma City, just hearing the ball come off his bat, it just sounded different. The ball last night was hit 110.7 miles an hour and traveled 409 feet. So, again, Chris Taylor, 4 for his last 16. So I think Dodgers fans, if he hit 250, which he's done, in the last 3 or 4 games for the Dodgers, and then he hits, 15 to 20 home runs, I think Dodgers fans would be very happy with that. So hopefully Chris Taylor is rounding his offense into form just as the season gets started. All right, web gem time. Here is that web gem from Miguel Rojas. Look at that catch. Wow. And I've said it a couple of times now. Look at that intensity. That's the thing about him. He is an absolute leader. He brings maximum intensity to the dugout. He takes that maximum intensity out onto the field. And, by the way, he is really, really, really good. A couple innings later, he made a play moving to his right, circled around the ball, threw the ball to Kyle Nevin at first base. Let's watch this web gem one more time. So Miguel Rojas brings elite defense. He's been hitting. He got a hit last night, too. So he's been playing good offense. He's a lifetime 260 hitter. It's not like he's been terrible offensively. So he brings, good enough offense. He brings elite defense. He brings leadership skills. Miguel Vargas is going to love playing next to Miguel Rojas. and then he brings a maximum amount of intensity, which I think intensity is something that the Dodgers could have used. In the playoffs last year, I think they could have used a guy with that type of intense mentality in the playoffs. So super excited about Miguel Rojas. Boy, how excited were you about Clayton Kershaw's performance last night? He went in to the sixth inning, 6 scoreless innings, as a matter of fact, in just 74 pitches. Look at that slider. He is featuring that slider, which that slider has been very good for him. He also was throwing his curveball a little bit last night. He threw, probably 2 or 3 curveballs, maybe a few more than that, but not that many curveballs, but he did feature his curveball, so he had a 4-pitch mix going last night. His fastball was only 90, but that's okay when you're left-handed, because left-handed hitters are tough to hit. And then you also, there's that 90-91. He was, 90-91 on there's that little slider / curveball type pitch, but he was throwing a slider. There's a slider right there, and you saw his curveball before that. We'll see his curveball here in just a second, I do believe. There's a slider again, going to that back foot of a right-hander. So you kind of saw him shape that slider a little more cutterish. Then you saw him, throw it a little more sweeping. So, kind of like all these Dodgers, there's that big curveball, 73 miles an hour. He threw a couple of those, and then spotting that fastball at 90-91, and then he throws that little cutter right there type looking pitch to where, he can keep that in the zone. Then he'll make it a little bit bigger to the back foot of right-handers for the swing and miss. And boy, I'll tell you what, it was very, very effective last night. As like I said, he went 6 scoreless innings in just 74 pitches. And for a guy like Clayton Kershaw, who's a little bit older, that, he's been on the IL some, not as much, I think, as people want to give him credit for, but, a little bit older, you want him to be a little bit more economical, than maybe a younger guy. And so 74 pitches, there's that big sweeping slider to the back foot of a right-hander. So 74 pitches in 6 innings, a big deal for Clayton Kershaw, rounding in the form for the Dodgers heading into there's that big curveball, heading into the regular season. Yency Almonte and Evan Phillips, they both, between those two, they might have the best sliders in all of the game of baseball. Almonte, his slider last year was just absolutely insane. And if you watched the broadcast last year, there's that little cutterish type slider pitch. It backed up a little bit on him on that pitch, but then there's that little changeup. So you have that left turn of that slider, then you have the right turn to that changeup, and it is just there's that little cutter again. And there's the changeup. Well, that's actually not a changeup. That's just kind of a two-seam. When he came to the Dodgers, he threw that two-seam that you just saw quite a bit. And then they ditched the two-seam for a while. There's another one right there that has that little bit of fade to it to the right. There's, that changeup at 89. So, he ditched the two-seam, went to the four-seam to pair with that slider last year. There's a two-seam again. And it was really good for him. Oh, I like that pitch because, like I said, that little cutterish, and then you can make it bigger to make it a slider turns left, and then that two-seam and the changeup turn right. So as a hitter, by the time that you're actually committing to swing, you don't know whether that ball is going to cut left or cut right. And between his little cutterish type pitch and then that two-seam, they're fairly close in speed. So you don't have any time to adjust and react. There's a slower type, slider type pitch, but so that two-seam, there's that changeup. So the four-seam, two-seam, changeup, and then slider type, cutterish type pitch, probably listed as a 3-pitch pitcher, but can make it as many as 5. That's why Yency Almonte is so successful. And then also, not only does he have that right there that turns right and away from a lefty, then there's another one on a changeup. He also has that cutter, like I said, that'll break into the barrel and do sweet contact. So Yency Almonte, check this out. Okay, last year I talk about all this stuff, and boy, look how he jammed that right-hander with that fade coming back into the right-handed swing. If you'll listen to the broadcast, Tim Neverett mentioned this. Yency Almonte did not allow a run last year in the regular season after July 4th. How about that? All right, the bazooka, Brusdar Graterol. Can he be that closer role? The Dodgers, Doc has said that they're going to kind of do that closer by committee role, which I like because, I like that little cutter type slider pitch that he just threw right there. There's Drew Avens. I love that young man. We're going to talk about here in just a minute. Hey, because, I've said this in my last show, but, well, that's a good-looking two-seam type pitch coming back into a righty. But, the three biggest outs of a game aren't always the last three outs. And, I want the Dodgers to have an Evan Phillips type guy, Yency, Almonte, even Brusdar Graterol, if he gets it going, we know how explosive he is, to get the biggest outs in the game. Doesn't have to be the last three outs. So the closer by committee thing doesn't bother me. Good play by Luke Williams. Throwing that to Kyle Nevin. You just saw Kyle Nevin catch that pitch at first base. Okay, Brusdar Graterol was hitting 99 last night on the four-seam. He was 87 to 88 on the slider. He was 97 to 98 on the sinker. The two-seam that I mentioned, that pitch right there, 97, 98, that's his sinker. And then, there's that slider. So you just got to see every pitch that Brusdar Graterol has. There is a 99-mile-an-hour two-seam. There's a 98-mile-an-hour two-seam. One, to the arm side, one to the glove side. The arm side has the run to it. The glove side straightens out just a little bit. So, hey, leave a comment. There's that four-seam up in the zone. That's so good. So you see the four-seam up in the zone. You see the two-seam sinker to the arm side, and then you see it to the glove side. The arm side gets tail to it. The glove side gets a little cut. Then you see the slider pitch, and then the four-seam up in the zone at 99. Very good pitch mix, very good combination for Graterol. When he's in the zone, he is very tough to hit. So, hey, leave a comment. Do you think Brusdar Graterol, would you trust him to get the three biggest outs on a consistent basis for the Dodgers this year? What is your trust level with Brusdar Graterol? Go ahead and leave a comment. Let's get to it. Let's talk about it. I've said it a couple of times now, but, hey, the more that Drew Avans gets to play in the main field in this case, Dodger Stadium, you're going to see this more and more, and Dodgers fans will catch on. This young man is a fantastic baseball player. I understand his batting average doesn't look great right now, but he has not had consistent at-bats, and for the type of offensive player that Drew Avans is, you saw him the other day in a first and third just bunt the ball to third base, and what that does is the first baseman can't crash, because there's a runner on first, and if he does, then the runner can just steal. The third baseman can't crash, because if you do, then that guy at third base is going to get a huge jump. So you just bunt it down, usually the first base line, but in this case you bunted it down the third base line, scored the run from third base. The runner at second base moved up to second in a scoring position. It was a great play. Those are the types of things that Drew Avans brings to the offense. He brings great defense every day. Again, he had the 53-game hit streak last year, which was the longest on-base streak. It was the longest on-base streak in the last 3 years in the PCL. He had the 40 stolen bases, and then he plays great defense like this. He can bunt. He can do all of the small ball type stuff, and then he can also hit, too, and he hit 7 home runs, so it's not like he can't hit home runs. So Drew Avans can do a little bit of everything on the baseball field, and I love watching this young man play. Boy, if you can't root for James Outman, you can't root for anybody, because as Tim Everett said in the broadcast, this young man has earned everything that he's gotten. As recently as Thursday morning, he didn't know if he was going to be on the roster, and there was literally nothing else that he could have done to put himself on the roster. Since he's become even going back to college, he went to Sac State. Reggie Christensen there was the only college coach that gave him a chance. He just went to work, kept getting better. And then when he became a Dodger, he wasn't on literally none of the Baseball America prospects list when he got drafted. Of course, he did get drafted in the 7th round. Tom Kunis was the scout that found him. And, boy, if you ask James Outman to talk about Tom Kunis, he'll go on and on and on, because, like I said, kind of like Reggie in college was the only college coach that gave him a chance. Tom Kunis was that guy. Hey, you only need one that believes in you. Tom Kunis believed in James Outman. He took a chance on him. The Dodgers drafted him. They immediately went to work on his swing, and look at what we have now, a young man who has just absolutely earned his way up through the ranks. He has done it the right way. He's done it the old school way. Actually, I don't like to say there's an old school or new school. I like to say there's a right school. He's gone to the right school. He's done it the right way, and he has earned his way onto the 26-man roster to start this season. He's hitting 295 in spring training. His OPS is 910, and he has 10 RBIs. Okay, and here's the deal. The Dodgers are going to be facing Zach Gallen for the D-backs in the first game. So James Outman likely will be the starter against that righty. and that is very, very exciting. And the thing about a prospect like him, I said it on the last podcast, or one of the last podcasts, that you don't bring a guy up to sit on the bench like this. You want a guy like James Outman, a Michael Busch, Miguel Vargas. Those guys need to be getting at-bats every night, so you figure James Outman is being brought up to play. Zach Gallen will be the opening day starter against the Dodgers, right-hander, so you figure James Outman will get to start in the first game of the season for the Dodgers. How exciting is that? Hey, Dodgers fans, another question for you. Are you becoming convinced that Shelby Miller might be turning a corner? Boy, look at that split change that he throws. That is just a wicked, wicked pitch. Has that tumble and fade to it. But hey, leave a comment. Let me know, are you starting to become convinced that Shelby Miller will help this Dodgers club? We know he was the first-round draft pick by the by the Cardinals several years ago. You know, he's always had the big four seam, the split change to him, and that little cutter-ish slider type pitch. Are you convinced that Shelby Miller can help this club this year for the Dodgers? You know, the Dodgers picked him up in the offseason, and he's thrown 4 scoreless outings in a row. He's had a couple of outings where things went a little bit sideways on him, but other than that, he's been good. And check this out. Boy, there's that split change. That's a good, good pitch. Okay, there's another split change. Look at that thing tumble. So he had a little bit of fade to it the pitch before, and there's that cutterish slider pitch. So the split change, the slider, then the four seam that you saw right there. Great combination. Okay, 9 strikeouts, no walks in spring training. And so, you know, like I said, he's been very good in terms of, you know, keeping the ball in the zone enough, at least not to walk guys, and explosive enough to get swing and miss. And like I said, he's had 4 scoreless outings in a row after having a couple of rough outings early in spring training. So again, I'm going to ask you, leave a comment. Are you excited about Shelby Miller, and do you think that he's going to help the Dodgers this year, and what kind of impact do you think he'll have? Okay, very cool moment last night. Of course, I got to see Kyle Nevin quite a bit at Baylor, being an Oklahoma State guy. They're in the same conference. Got to see him in Stillwater, got to see him at the Bricktown Ballpark several different times when the Big 12 tournament was there. Of course, it's moved to Dallas since, but hey, Kyle Nevin, I'm a big fan of him. He's tall and lanky. He's athletic. He's very, very athletic. He can play both the infield and the outfield. You know, if you go to my Bubba Aline conversation interview we had, Bubba will tell him, you know, Baylor and Maryland played each other. Bubba was at Maryland, and Kyle Nevin actually robbed a home run in that series. And that was the first time that Bubba, watch this play by Kyle, nice little dig right here, made it look easy. And so that was the first time Bubba had ever seen Kyle Nevin play. Now they were teammates actually last year on Rancho, so that was kind of a cool little anecdote that Bubba Aline gave when he was talking with me on one of the interviews. Look at that nice little play, long and rangy, very comfortable around the bag. Kyle Nevin, and then on the right, that's his dad right there, Phil Nevin. So Phil Nevin was managing while his son Kyle Nevin was playing about 30 feet away from him at first base. You know, so that had to be really, really, really cool for both of those people. You had to think that Phil Nevin was probably a little bit nervous watching his son on at Dodgers Stadium in the Freeway Series, or Clayton Kershaw on the bump and all these stars out there. There's Phil Nevin again with his son playing first base, talking to Shohei Ohtani with his son playing first base about 30 feet away from him. So that was a really cool moment. I wanted to show you that. And it also gave me a chance to show you one of the 2022 draft picks, Kyle Nevin, who is another one of those versatile, long, lanky, you know, one of those guys that's very athletic and very versatile. So there you have it. There's our show for you today. Hey, another couple of questions. Leave a comment, if you will. Let's get a conversation going about Dodgers baseball. Again, the questions I asked, hey, what type of year do you think Max Muncy's going to have? Do you think Shelby Miller's going to make an impact? How many innings do you think Clayton Kershaw is going to throw? You know, is that bullpen, is it going to be dominant? Again, do you think Dustin May, is he going to be as dominant as I think he has a chance to be with all that nasty stuff he has? Okay, so those are some questions we posed today. Again, leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going about Dodgers baseball. I could talk Dodgers baseball all day. Okay, before we get out of here, just one more reminder. If you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily, become a subscriber, have all your friends become subscribers, and then once you subscribe, click that notification bell. You know, turn on your notifications. That way, every time Dodgers Daily releases a new video, you will get notified. You won't miss a thing from Dodgers Daily. We can keep growing, and we can keep providing you content like this in the future. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in and say go Dodgers.